people know how I feel about it. It should be an option. I've never crowdfunded. I'm not a crowdfunder. I've never started one. I've never done one. I've never won or failed one. I am adamant that if you're taking that option off the table for something silly, you are stopping people or you are alienating people who could get their work out into the world through this process, and that's on you. That's not on the crowd fund. That's not on anybody. If you want to shame people for trying to get their books out in the world in a little bit different way than you did, I don't want to be associated with you in that sense. You might be a great person. We can have great conversations about other things, but on that topic, we just disagree. Hey, it's Writers Row, where we talk about the writing community on Twitter. We talk about the business side and the creative side of writing. I am one of your hosts, DC Wright-Hammer. I'm the author of the Between Two Minds series, which is science fiction thriller, available on Wright-Hammer.com and Amazon.com. And I'm joined, as always,
by David Gane, the co-author of the Shepherd and Wolf mystery series, which is available on kunyosinggane.com and at your local bookstores, most likely. I guess in Canada, not in the States. You guys are tough.
all right.
What are we talking about?
Before we get to that, got to do the shameless plug for the channel.
Yes.
I don't know when this is going to drop, but we have passed 300 subscribers, so I want to give you a thumbs up for helping us achieve that goal. That's a small goal. Stepping stone to get to our ultimate goal. We'd like to hit 1,000 subscribers as fast as we can. We understand it's a process, but we do appreciate everybody's support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And we haven't been getting a ton of comments, so I want to challenge people to definitely comment on these videos. It's helps with engagement, helps with the YouTube algorithm to make these videos pop up on people's subscriptions and whatnot. So we really appreciate that. So definitely do that. So David, you were asking a question just a minute ago.
I was, and I interrupted you, and I feel bad, but I'm going to ask it again. What are we talking about, TC, today?
So I wanted to take time. It's always kind of buzzing on Twitter of what path should people take to get published, whether it's traditional, self-publish, small press, or some kind of combination, or should they start with one and try others? And so I wanted to talk about this idea that floats around Twitter of is there a right way to get published? Is there a good way to get published? And I'd like to talk about an episode we actually had about a month ago, depending on when this airs, where we talked about crowdfunding as part of a self-publish or small press type publishing deal, and just kind of talk through that and get into some maybe controversial topics. I don't know. We'll have to see where the video takes us.
You're full of controversy, DC.
I'm such a controversial, aggressive. I'm aggressive to people's senses and common sense. It's what makes the show,
what it is?
Different from all the other shows like it out there.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, so where do you want to start into this?
Well, I think we should probably describe, for people who aren't familiar, the different types as best as we can. I mean, we're not experts on the ones we haven't done necessarily, but we know a little bit about them. And so like traditionally published, I think, is something that comes to mind for people. And so I can actually, if you want to just kind of tell what you know about traditionally published, we can kind of go back and forth on that. We can work through the different publishing types, and we can go from there. So.
Okay, just throw me into this. Honestly, I always feel bad when I talk about traditionally published because I don't have a lot of experience. It's all just hearsay from other people, friends that are in the industry, that sort of stuff. From what I've kind of picked up, and I really would like to get somebody who is published on the show, like through going with a traditional publisher and have this discussion again. But I know that you get a bit more support along the pathway. One of the things that I heard just recently from a traditionally published author is that when I asked him why he went that way rather than indie, he said he just didn't know all the things that needed to be done. And he didn't really want to go out and figure out all those things that needed to be done. Including, just having the guidance through the editing process, doing the cover design, securing the reviews. Like, he didn't even know some of the reviews that he should be getting to help build up his momentum. And it, of course, it comes with a price. You are getting a smaller cut of the profits in the end,
Right.
But the balance of it is that hopefully you get a bit more spread because you're getting into bookshops, and if you have a marketing team behind you, which from what I've understood across the board, at least in Canada, most of the marketing budgets are quite low, but I still think you are getting a bit more just because you have people who have a process and know what to do and where to go and stuff like that.
And I'll even take a step back from there with some of my knowledge on traditional publishing, in that you write your manuscript and you get it in decent shape, and then you don't publish it. You go find an agent who has connections to large publishing houses. There's, I think, 5 or 6 major ones, and then there's tiers underneath that of medium to small sized publishers that have different varying structures with them. And so you have to first pitch your manuscript to an agent in most cases who has those connections. They have to like it enough to think that they can sell it then on the other side to a publisher. But then I guess there's a whole process after you get an agent of making sure that you position your manuscript in such a way that it will sell, that someone at one of the publishing houses is going to want to take it on and actually give you a publishing contract. So that whole process takes time. And so with the traditional publishing route, you do have to have a completed manuscript. You have to secure an agent. You have to have them work with you then to get your manuscript in a position to pitch it to to get a publishing contract from traditional publishers. And then after you get the contract, they're already working, currently with however many contracts they have. And so you get put at the back of that line. And so you're waiting another 18 to 24 months or whatever it is. And it varies. Sometimes it's a shorter time frame, sometimes it's longer, before they can get your manuscript in. They get it through their editing process. They do the cover art. They do everything. They do marketing, releasing, all that stuff is done for you. You literally do get to focus mostly on the writing aspect of it. Although, like you said, marketing budgets tend to be low for new, authors who may, don't have a huge following. So they get some of the marketing budget. Some of it falls on them to build social media or do some of their own marketing to supplement that and to round it out. And so that's one. So that whole process in of itself is a way to get published, right? It's a way to get your manuscript from where it's at, in a file form that's been just with you, and maybe if you're beta readers or whomever has looked it over, you can get it out in the public, and it's a way to start, there's very little money whatsoever invested in that, right? Because you're not paying money to get the agent. The agent gets paid based on your publishing contract. You get paid based on your publishing contract as well. And so since there's little money up front, really you're paying with time. You're paying with waiting, and a lot of, there's uncertainty. You're paying with that to some extent as well. So I think the pros are there's not much money involved. The cons are there's a waiting game that you have to kind of...
Not much money, meaning you're not spending a lot of money.
You're not putting money up front in order to... Not much money up front to get the publishing done. What, obviously you need to have the ability to write a manuscript. So whatever that means, a word processor, a computer or something like that. but without getting, microscopic in those costs. It's fairly quote unquote cheap. So
Yeah.
that's one way, I think.
And I want to just add on there are some publishing houses that they're small enough that they will pick you up without an agent.
Mhm.
That's kind of the step down. And also I wanted to say that there within the larger houses, there are subsidiaries that
Yep.
have, they're running a specific print, whether it's like a certain genre or whatever, or they're focusing on literary fiction or something like that.
Right.
So you do have those step downs as well from the big houses. So
Yep. So yeah, with the small presses, you can skip the agent. You can, and the thing about those. So if we want to really focus in on those, is you said step down. I don't necessarily want to have connotations with that
oh
phrase.
yeah, no.
So I just wanted to clarify that there's nothing wrong with going with a small publisher,
No.
but there's no getting around the fact that they have fewer resources than a large publishing house would have. And with the fewer resources means that, they might work directly with authors instead of working with agents who are going to want certain things dictated and certain things done in a certain way. Agents that are working on behalf of their authors are great, but the small publishing houses might they might go directly to the authors. Now, with that, one of the things you need to be aware of is you still might want to opt for either an agent or somebody who understands contract law to help you work out the details. Even if you just have to get a lawyer for, whatever, an hour to review your contract and make sure it's in good faith, that's worth saving you the trouble of signing a contract, which likely would include signing over the rights to your manuscript in some form or fashion. And you just want to make sure that what you're signing is what you think it is, and you're getting into what you think you're getting into. And so it's not to say that there's anything wrong with small presses or small publishers or anything like that. It's just you just want to make sure both sides are represented well.
Absolutely. And then what would you say, where do you want to go for the step down from that? Or sorry, I keep saying step down, and I don't even mean it in the connotation.
Yep.
What's the right word? I don't know what the right word is. If only we had a writer around here to help us out.
Right. So yeah, so you've got that, and that's basically traditional publishing. But we could talk at length about self-publishing. In your form, you did partner publishing. You
Partnership, yeah.
Partnership publishing, and basically with that, I'll just give a quick snippet. You can augment that as much as you want as well. But just basically, so you write the manuscript, and the part where we mentioned going to an agent as opposed to going to, where you would look for an agent to get a traditional publisher if you're self-publishing. Instead, you go into the editing process directly. You might find yourself your own editor, a professional editor likely, or somebody should review your work before you take it to the next step of wanting to publish it. Get another set of eyes on it, ideally someone relatively professional. How much you pay for that is up to you, working out the details of how much you pay for that. Getting a book cover designed, you're basically doing everything. So independent authors, they're independent, they reserve rights for everything, but they put in all the effort, they put in all the money. And so where you're not waiting like you would with a traditional route that you might wait, months at a time, you're putting in the money and the effort yourself, and you do have to wear all the hats to do that portion of it.
I also want to kind of, this is one of those places that you are actually kind of along the line of controversy because you were talking about the editor. There's a very wide range of opinions on that process, how much you spend, how much, who you use, everything like that. I guess my thought is that it's there's a lot of varied opinions. I think you need to make the choice that you feel comfortable with, but your choice does not mean that it's going to work for everyone else, we'll say.
Right. And that's why I say get a second set of eyes on it. That's the way I phrase it. I don't necessarily say hire a $5,000 editor to whatever. And like I said, you work out the pricing, you work out how, and basically just save yourself the trouble of hitting publish and then having readers be your editor for you. Can you do it? Sure, you're free to do that. And even for some nonfiction how-to books that aren't very long, maybe 15 or 20 pages or something like that, what editing looks like for that is going to be very different from a 300-page fiction novel. And so you just have to figure out what works for you from that perspective. I am a firm advocate that people should have someone else look at their work before they publish it. But, with that, there's a whole spectrum of what that looks like. So, like you said, it's controversial. We're going to do another episode on money for the cost of indie publishing and how to avoid some costs and how to keep costs down, how to avoid debt in a lot of cases. We're going to do another episode specifically on that. But I just wanted to hammer home your point because I do understand the controversy behind that. And it has everything to do with people that have very few resources, and that's understandable. And I basically fit into that camp. Even to this day, I have very few resources I can allocate towards writing and writing costs. And so, yeah, if you can't hire the best editor, that doesn't mean you should skip it. But it also doesn't mean that you should feel bad about not being able to hire the most expensive editor. You do what you can do within your means, and you should get your work out there. You should have a second set of eyes on it. I'll go back to that. So.
And so there's the indie path, the traditional published path, and as we kind of mentioned, there's the hybrid path, which I took, which is partnership publishing or whatever. And everyone, there, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about my path as well, and have told me so very often. They don't think I should be spending the money that I am. But I'm very happy with the choices that I've made. So, and really the partnership path, and I like partnership because I feel it is a partnership, is really working with a person who can do a lot of those services. For example, our partnership, she does the editing, she does the book cover and design, the interior as well, I should say. She also gets us into stores. She helps support us getting into awards, getting us to submit to awards and stuff like that, which has been very beneficial. And she's kind of become, and this is where the partnership comes in. I know her really well, so I can call her up and have those conversations of, hey, what if we try this thing, and we play with ideas, and we do a lot of like just brainstorming, or comparing the costs of getting us into a store with the percentage of the cut that might be required to go to the store. Is it worthwhile, and stuff like that. So those kind of discussions are fantastic. It's it's almost feels like it's we're paying for the service, but it also feels like she's with us in the trenches trying to figure out how to make it work. So
and some questions on that, because we've talked about it a little bit, but
yeah,
you pay for these services up front. Is there ongoing costs? Or is it per book? Like, hey, to do all this stuff for this book, it's going to cost this much? Or how does that work, price structure? If you don't, if you understand it.
We pay per hour, a fixed amount, and we retain the rights to the story. It doesn't go to her, her company, I should say. And you know, we usually get a quote before we get going into it. We sign a contract on each book.
Yep.
We can pull out on that at any time. And I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. But yeah, we usually know pretty well what to expect. And now that we've done this 3-4 times, we know what to expect. We can compare our numbers and say, this is how many hours we put into editing. This is how many hours we put into the book build. This is how many hours we put in wherever. I think those are the two major things. And then there's also a lot of stuff that, you know, she, I think, gives us really good deals on, I'll say. So, yeah.
Well, and I think
so that helps.
I mean, it's really appealing because, you know, it's tough to put a price tag on those like moments, and you even have a co-author, so that helps too. But as an independent author who isn't in a partner publishing deal and just recently started working with a co-author on a project, but before that it was just me trying to figure out how to navigate the indie author landscape. And the editor that I did hire, very similar to your partnership deal to some extent, but I never, you know, we signed a contract, we would do the book, and then I would pick her brain here or there on different things. But I never wanted to like take advantage. I never wanted to overstep my bounds. If I had a question, I'd shoot it to her in an email, and she was great about it. But mostly, you know, there's just moments where you're like, I need to figure this out. And a lot of times you don't necessarily have anyone you can talk to right away. And so outlets like the writing community, outlets like, you know, if you did have somebody like that in your corner, I think that's great, especially for the awards. Like, that's another thing. I recently started doing more in-person sales just because I wanted to start doing that. I have stock that I ordered. I want to move that stock. I want to start getting out in the community more and doing things. But awards is the next step, and I don't even know where to begin with some of that stuff and the timing behind it, because sometimes there's like, oh, the book has to be released in this year and it has to meet certain qualifications and so on. And so having a partner, you know, a quote unquote partner publisher to do some of those things for you, you know, it's tough to put a price tag on a lot of that stuff. So if people are, you know, oh, don't pay for that and don't pay for this, you could do it yourself. Well, the time, the energy, the mental cycles, the just not knowing, like, I would happily pay a small fee for a lot of that stuff. That's all I'm saying. So,
yeah, absolutely. Also, because we do work with a printer, we don't do print on demand. Just to help lower our costs.
Yep.
And she also works with us to arrange that and set it up and work and do all that. The other thing that we kind of are leading towards, though, is that we keep talking about money. It costs money to be independent, be an indie author. And I think that's the one challenge that most of us are trying to always struggle with. How do we continue doing what we are doing? How do we fund things if we feel like we need to fund things? I know there are a lot of people out there who are indie authors, and I'm pretty sure that they're doing quite well, who don't put a lot of money into it. They keep their overhead costs really low,
right,
minimal, and then whatever they make from their sales basically goes into being profit. So there is that path. We talk about spending money, doesn't mean that everyone wants to do that. But some people do want to, and you know, it's like really running a business. I've always thought being an indie author is you're just running a business, right? So you can get your own funding from, you know, your family pool of cash, wherever that is, whether it's through your own, maybe you've got a full-time job and then that's funding your side gig. You can go to your family and friends if that's the path that you take. But and I'm going to actually say, because we have this in my country and in my province, you can get financial grants from the government. You do the application process and everything, and you may or may not get it, but there is the possibility that you can get grants to help fund that process.
Project and process.
Project. There we go. Thank you. I knew it was there. I just couldn't get it.
Yep.
But then also, as we did the episode about crowdfunding, and I'm going to also throw in, like, there's multiple crowdfunding places out there on the internet. Go to the crowdfunding episode to watch it if you're interested in that. But there's also one thing we didn't talk about is Patreon, which is kind of its own, you know, you develop a following and you have people giving you money and you give them perks through, like, every week or every month or whatever. So there's a lot of that. And not a lot of people that, like, we kind of came up against some backlash on that, because it felt like people didn't like the idea of asking others for money, which I thought was, I was a little surprised by it.
Yeah. So take a step back, because I like to describe things. So crowdfunding there's a lot of websites, as David said, but it's basically before you actually complete a project, like let's say you're writing a book or a video game. Crowdfunding is very popular in video games. You need an influx of capital. You need funding in order to do some of these things, or you need, you know, you're going to need money to cover costs at some point. You know, or in some cases, if, you know, so you're just looking to bring capital into basically whatever venture you're trying to do. And so in the case of indie books, you know, if you want to cover the cost of an editor, the cost of getting a cover, you know, the cost of marketing, these are real costs, and they could be hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on what you go with and how you do it. You can start a crowdfund on various websites that basically says, if you donate this much, you get a perk. And perks can range from all kinds of things, like a free copy of the, you know, you donate basically the cost of the book, you get a discounted price on getting a copy of the book. Or you donate this much, you get an autographed paperback. You donate this much, and, you know, we'll whatever. And perks could be anything. They're typically not
a phone call from the author.
Right, a phone call from the author, or a Skype interview with the author, or something like that. It's typically not like cash value. So it's not like you donate $25, we're going to give you a $25 gift card, because the whole purpose of it is to generate capital. It is to generate money coming in so that you can either cover the cost of things you've already paid for or pay for them as you're doing them. And so this idea, we talked about it in the episode a month ago, link in the description down below. And people, first off, I think people don't really understand it because they got angry about it. And I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that they don't understand it, instead of what we'll talk about in a second. But if they understood that it's difficult, and I said this in the video, it's difficult to sell people a real thing book that I've written and is edited and has a cool cover. That's difficult enough. When you're doing a crowdfund, you're selling them not a book. You're selling them the idea of a book in the future. And so these perks that you have, you really have to make them attractive. Oftentimes it is friends and family for people who are not very famous and whatnot doing crowdfunds. But you will get people that will sign on and just send you, you know, money, $5 here, $10 there, and that adds up. But if people understood how difficult that is, like, it's like a full-time job. You are working. You're working for the money. You're just doing it in a little different way than others might do it. You're working by selling yourself, selling the perks, selling the thing that's going to be at the end of the project, the book that you're actually writing, you're going to publish. You are selling your brand. You're going to work to do all this stuff, and there's no guarantee that anybody's going to give any money. When people do give money, they're not being coerced. They know full well going in what they're getting in perks and what the end result of the whole thing is going to be, what they're funding. And nobody has to donate. Like 0 people could donate. It could fall flat on its face. And I'm guessing, I don't know the numbers, but I'm guessing probably most crowd funds fail. That's a guess. I don't have a statistic because I didn't look it up before the show. But I'm just guessing.
I know a big chunk of them do fail. Yes.
And by fail, people set goals. I want to raise $1,000, and they get under that, or they get nothing. Yeah. So they quote unquote fail. So I'm giving people.
And also, I just want to interrupt that because when you don't make the goal that you set, like you'll have a bare minimum. If you don't achieve that, then you do not get the money. So that's part of the thing. Yeah, you're basically trying to offer, an accurate budget for the thing that you want.
Right.
And if you can't, then you technically shouldn't be able to actually go ahead on the project, right? So then that's what happens. So I just want to state that.
And
it's a bit of a gamble.
I think that's true for most of them. I think there's other ones, there's some flexibility in that, but I think you're generally right that you have to basically come up with a budget and then you have to go to work your tail off to get to it. That is, so some people, I'm going to guess that people don't understand that, and that's why there was a lot of backlash, because people were saying that crowdfunding is a scam or crowdfunding is some kind of not honorary way to make money to fund a project. And I will say it flat out on Writer's Row, and this is my opinion, not David's, but it's mine, that those people are full of shit. They just are. They have this romanticized version of publishing in their head that they think is glamorous, and I pulled myself up from my bootstraps, and I'm an indie author, and if you don't do it my way, and we've gone over the different publishing paths in this episode very calmly, succinctly, very educationally on purpose, because when we got to this point, I have opinions, and the opinions are, if you're not scamming people. Number one, so I don't agree with people who scam people. I don't agree with people who take advantage or lie or cheat or steal or anything like that. That is not what crowdfunding is. Crowdfunding is what it sounds like. It is getting money from a crowd to fund a project. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And if you're against asking people for money for a thing, then you should not be an author at all. You should not be selling your books, because that's what you do. You're asking somebody for money. Oh yeah, in exchange for a good. Whereas in this process, you're exchanging them for a future good. But that's up to you if you want to donate to that, if you want to give to that cause, if you want to give to that project.
Okay, so first of all, though, my one thought is that I do think that there is the argument that if you don't believe that you should be investing big amounts of money into a project like this, and because you don't believe that you need to have the expensive editor, you don't believe that you should be spending a lot of money on your book design, book cover, whatever. Either you're doing it your own way, right? You're doing the work yourself. You are a solid enough editor. You're a solid enough book designer that you don't need anyone's help. And that is good. Because I think some people, if that's the path that they choose, they have the right to choose that path, sure, as you said. But then the challenge is if people like myself, either because I went on my own path and tried to do it on my own and keep the costs low, and I was absolutely exhausted, which is one of the reasons I turned to Heather and said, help me, I need your guidance and your help and your skills.
Yep.
And So then that means that I need to somehow fund that process.
Right.
So yes, I'm just saying though that first and foremost, it could be not anything about, that asking. It may not be about asking for the money. It may be that the initial idea is that you don't even need that much money to be able to publish books. That spending money on publishing books is the initial problem in the argument.
Okay. Right. If somebody is doing a crowdfund for $10,000 to do an indie book, that sounds like it's on the high end based on my experience.
Well, and I know that some of these have been only $1,000 or something like that, but maybe that's the initial rejection of the idea of crowdfunding, is you should just do it that way, without the money and everything like that. Do it on your own. But if you're spending the money, then but then if you are spending the money, then if you are going to, I have no issue with crowdfunding. I'm totally fine. If you want to do crowdfunding, you can do crowdfunding. If you, I guess I'm kind of the same way as you are. As long as it's you're trying to do good and not trying to scam people, or you're not going to hold up a bank to get the money, I'm cool with all that, right? So
so let's flip the discussion, because I think let's say, if you're going to get a professional cover made, if you're going to be professionally edited, let's just say that you don't have to do any of that, but to be competitive, in a lot of cases, you're going to need some of those services. So let's just put a number. Let's say it's $2,000. Let's just say that. I agree. If you can save money, if you can, if you can really work and make it a business and have you inject your own capital into your business, that's great. Some people are able to do that. They're able to cut back expenses in their personal life. They're able to set aside some money and all that. And I encourage people to do that. And I think when we do an episode on money and being an independent author, we'll get into a lot of that. But the other side of it too is that we're trying to bring our stories, our art, the pieces of us, our little, art children, or whatever you want to call them. We want to get them out in the world. And crowdfunding is a way to do that. And so to poo-poo that and say that crowdfunding is some scam, or to say it's, whatever, I go back to it. It's taking the idea of, I do it, I did it this way. In a lot of cases, I bet you I went into a lot of debt to get my professional editor and my book cover, and you're trying to find a way around that. How dare you try to find a way around that? So I'm going to find any reason to dislike the process that you're going through, even though it's totally legit. It's a lot of hard work. So, I did hard work to make money, or to have a credit card, or whatever it is, to pay for my services. How dare you go to other people and do something different than what I did? I think there's some of that. Even if people just generally don't like the idea of crowdfunding, I think this idea of, I pulled myself up by my indie author bootstraps, and if I can do it, anybody can, and you doing it this different way is bad and wrong, and that makes you a jerk. And why would you ever ask anyone for any money ever? Except that's what you do when you try to sell your books. You're asking people for money in exchange for something. In this case, it's a perk short term and a book long term. And so there's these stages. And so I've gone on the record. People know how I feel about it. It should be an option. I've never crowdfunded. I'm not a crowdfunder. I've never started one. I've never done one. I've never won or failed one. I am adamant that if you're taking that option off the table for something silly, you are stopping people, or you are alienating people who could get their work out into the world through this process. And that's on you. That's not on the crowdfund. That's not on anybody. If you want to shame people for trying to get their books out in the world in a little bit different way than you did, I don't want to be associated with you in that sense. You might be a great person. We can have great conversations about other things, but on that topic, we just disagree.
And there goes our subscriber count. I'm joking. Whatever happens.
Well, we got 3 downvotes on that video. On the video for crowdfunding, we got 3 downvotes, which is 3 more. We had 1 up into that point. So we quadrupled, we increased our number by 3, up to 4. Just on that one video alone. People are very, very adamant. But I will say there was a lot of people who were like, oh, crowdfunding is a thing. Oh, I can do that. And they weeded through some of the negativity that had come up. And they were excited for that opportunity because it gave them an outlet. It gave them an option that they didn't know that they had that didn't involve going into massive amounts of debt or waiting months and months and months to get their book out. You know, it gave them another option. And so that's why I was excited about it. I'm still excited about it. Would I try it in the future? Maybe. I don't know. I'm looking for alternatives to being just the standard indie author publishing that I've done because I've incurred a lot of expense and the revenue just isn't always there. It's not guaranteed and the hard work doesn't always pay off. And so crowdfunding could be an option for me, and I'm not going to let anybody make me feel bad about that.
Awesome, DC. I'm happy for you.
So on that note, we should probably wrap it up. Appreciate everybody who stayed this long. David, what do you have to promote for money to people who are watching?
I don't know. You know what? I want to promote is I want, if you haven't watched a bunch of the Writers' Rows, we've got we've got, I think, almost 30 episodes.
Yeah, we're in. As of this recording, we're getting close to 30.
So we've got a big backlog now. Go back, watch those old episodes, and go support all the authors that are showing up and appearing on the show and sharing their opinions and their views and their experiences, because they are, you know, DC and I enjoy doing this one-on-one thing, but we really do like bringing in other people and having those conversations about the process, the art, as well as the business of writing. That's one of my favorite parts of doing Writers' Row. So go find those people, support them, buy their books if you haven't, and what about you, DC?
So I want to do an episode
buy my book.
Right. Well, now I can't do that. Way to go. I want to do an episode on what is Writers' Row, how to get on Writers' Row. I've actually been getting that question quite a bit lately, how to get on Writers' Row. And spoiler, you just kind of have to hang around and we figure out topics, especially if you have a good topic that you want to see covered on Writers' Row. We want to do a whole episode about it so people kind of know more, but hit up David and me in a DM and, pitch your topics to us. Bring your that's the main thing, because we could have any number of guests on here, but if you're very knowledgeable on something in, the writing community, if you know something and you want us to talk about it and you can bring a really good perspective, jump in our DMs on Twitter. Don't be afraid. Like, we're happy to take those DMs. There's other DMs we don't like, but those are good. So do those. And bring us your topics. Like, the more how do I get a, we started doing book reviews. People have been asking for book reviews and nobody's watching this. Nobody's watching this episode now, but I will say we're going to do more book reviews, but that takes time because David and I both want to read the book. We want to take time to think about it and review it, and then we want to talk about it. So those are only going to be scattered in every couple of months or so. We're happy to...
And it's not our priority as well.
Exactly.
We really want to talk about the business and the art of writing. That's our kind of go-to order of things, right?
Exactly.
Those things, and then book reviews and stuff like that.
Yep.
And we're not interested in just having people come on and talk about themselves either. We are interested in the topic. Don't bring us bring us the topic as well.
We'll bring both because we're hoping.
Well, yes, bring you. We like you, but you know what I mean.
All right, we'll
Move
do a
on,
whole episode
everyone.
on that. The end of this show has become great. So we should probably end it right now and I'm not even going to pitch anything else. So subscribe,
Okay.
like, comment. We appreciate all of you. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.